live in the dungeon. This is the Dream Warrior Review. I'm Kurt Thomas.
I'm Mick Strawn.
And this is episode 96. It's a very special episode because we're going to talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warrior.
Dream Warrior! Ain't gonna dream
I had a dream that we were going to review Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Oh, that's funny. I did too. Wait, were you guys both there? Because I saw you in my dream.
I was there, and Kurt was there, and you were there, and Paige was there.
Listen, in your dreams, you have the power to be anything you imagine.
That's right.
Could I be a meatloaf?
If that's your dream power, then that's your dream power.
Listen, let me tell you, I've been working on a book so hard lately that I wouldn't mind being a meatloaf for a little bit.
What about being Meatloaf the singer? Can you do that too?
That'd be even better, actually.
Even he doesn't want to be meatloaf.
He'll do anything for behind the screams, but he won't do that, Diandra.
Right?
I'm just going to read the one sentence that's in front of me from IMDb.
That's all
one
it gets?
sentence?
Just one sentence?
Well, maybe it's a good thing because then it keeps us in our lane so we don't go off on a tangent. With all the details, literally describing every moment of the movie.
You've heard our podcast before, haven't you?
I've learned that tangents are fun, though. Sometimes I'll push Mick in that direction, actually.
Yeah.
Hey, go for it. Let's go off this cliff here for a second.
Listen, you're in my territory now. You're in Nightmare on Elm Street 3. If you want a tangent,
He's going to be multiple tangents here, I have a
I'll
feeling.
give you all kinds of tangents.
Welcome to prime time, bitch.
Yeah, welcome to primetime, bitch.
So this is about a psychiatrist familiar with knife-wielding dream demon Freddy Krueger.
Really?
Isn't that written beautifully?
That's
She
terrible.
helps teens at a mental hospital battle the killer who is invading their dreams.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes.
I got to tell you, in watching this again, and I just watched it again, I noticed the beginning quite a bit. I mean, the beginning dream.
Is that because your
sequence
credits are in the
with
beginning?
What?
Your credit was in the beginning. Is that why you noticed it?
No, not that beginning.
Oh, okay.
Ding dong. No, the credit that the beginning with the 50-50 mirror, the dream where
Kristen.
yeah,
Kristen, yeah.
Kristen's going into the dream, and there's the that creepy little kid with the tricycle.
Yeah.
And I have to say the thing that amazed me is how creepy that kid is.
She is very good
Man,
because she's like innocent, but at the same time she's
giggle.
just not even. She's you just know she's not a real person.
This is where he takes
Oh, really?
that.
Absolutely.
Like, so creepy.
Yeah, this is. Yeah, well, you know what? When she said that this time, I gotta tell you, it actually bothered me a little.
Yeah,
I was like, ew, that's ew.
It's kind of Pizzagate, isn't it?
It is a little bit. Well, it was never proved.
Right.
No,
Well, there's literally a pizza in one of these movies coming up. But anyway.
Yeah, there's.
That's not a different movie. Anyway.
That's a different movie. Yeah, no, it was infinitely creepier, especially considering societally right
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
It was like paralleling so many things that we have going on. That it was. The weird thing is ever since Trump has become president, I felt like I was in a dream
Or a nightmare.
or a nightmare, either one. But
That is way
then-
scarier than Freddy.
I mean, they're both
He
like,
is.
Well, he's Mike
just
Kruger for
burned.
sure.
They are. They're both.
I have nightmares about orange hair.
They've both spent way too long in some kind of sunlight or flames or something.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I have to say I just really appreciated how creepy that girl was, and something came to my mind, and I don't use it very often, so it's fresh, okay, fresh mind stuff. Here's the question: where's that girl?
Her name is Kristen Clayton, and she was also in part 4. and she grew up to, I believe that she was on like a couple episodes of Charmed. Don't quote me. But she was even in the Never Sleep Again documentary that they did.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
And what is she doing today? These days? Just still an actress?
I think that she's an actress. I think she's still an actress.
Oh, really? Okay. It just occurred to me that, Lawrence Fishburne, who is just honest to
You mean
God,
Larry?
Larry.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Larry.
In this credit, he's Larry. Yeah. I got to say that the guy, I have crossed his path many times in Hollywood, and he is the coolest human being that's ever lived.
That's so good to hear.
Oh no, he is just so awesome. He comes out, and just like he did back then, he used to hang with the effects guys and the art department and the people that normally just get scraped off of the producer's shoe at the end of the show, and he hung with the crews and hung with us. He was awesome.
I remember talking to Ken Sagos about him, and he was saying how great Larry was to him and all the advice he gave him as an actor.
Yeah.
Saying you don't need to push it so far. All you need to do is just this, and it'll come across so differently. And that Ken really appreciated that. And there's always that kind of thing about people, I think, who go on to become, I don't know, I guess just, I don't know how to put this without making it sound weird, but who go on to, I guess, continue to do movies and television and film. And some of them just have that energy about them.
Do you know where he came from at that point? I mean, here's the thing. This guy was in an Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember even at the time, everybody was kind of like, we bow down before you.
I have a funny story about Apocalypse Now and Dream Warriors. When I was a kid, the first time I ever saw Dream Warriors was right after Apocalypse Now on HBO.
Really?
And my dad actually was recording it for me. Like he popped a VHS in and hit record and then went to bed. And I sat in front of the TV and watched it. Wow. But every time I watched Dream Warriors after that, because I wore that tape out, it was always the bull scene where the head is getting cut off.
Right.
I would always forward it to that scene and then start it right from there. So for the longest time, I assumed that scene was in Dream Warriors as well. And so I thought, this is how Dream Warriors starts. They cut a bull's head off and then boom.
Wow, that's you know what that is? That's superior editing. That's mind editing. Mind editing.
The best kind sometimes.
The best kind of editing?
Yeah.
It's the
headcanon.
That's right.
So, in watching it this time, I appreciated Nancy Thompson a little bit more.
Woohoo!
And I actually appreciated Craig. Craig Wesson is his name, right?
Craig Watson.
Watson?
I don't know how Watson.
Yeah,
I always thought it was Watson.
But I kind of really dug the whole thing, to tell you the truth. The thing I have noticed is I've seen different copies of it recently, and it amazes me how different the different prints, because some people have different prints.
Right.
Like for instance, I have the print that was on Amazon. I had that print stored, and it's terrible.
Oh,
It's the Freddys Hell is completely washed out, and the one that you gave me is not from that.
right.
And it's Freddys Hell is really crisp in that one,
Yes.
because reds are easy to blow out. And whenever I've seen the other one on that's on Amazon, it's a terrible print. It's just completely blown out. And I've heard, the thing is I've talked before to the DP. I can't remember his name just because he's a really good friend of mine, right? I've talked before to the DP that says that one thing that New Line Cinema was kind of well known for was just putting out every print that they could get. In other words, they put out so many prints out there that some of them were just terrible, right? And if somebody had really been looking, they wouldn't have let them get out. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So they had to put a lot out into theaters all at once because it ramped up so quickly. It went way beyond their original release. When they put out the original release, it was so many theaters. Then almost immediately, it was so popular that they had to do a second batch of prints, and that those prints went out without quality control.
Right.
And
Wow.
and there are some prints I've just seen such different, and of course I look for that kind of crap, you know.
Right.
Well, to piggyback off of that, do you know for 20 years, I never realized that when Kristen is running in that opening scene, when she gets stuck in that goo,
Right.
I never realized that was blood. Because for like the longest time, the initial release, it just shows it as like a dark black.
Looks like tar.
goo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But right, like tar. But when it was released to start watching on like Sci-Fi,
Yeah.
the Sci-Fi channel, they for some reason had a better remastered quality.
Right. That's what I
And
mean.
you can actually see that she's stepping into blood. Like she's stuck in this red gelatinous blood
right.
that she's trying to get out of.
Yeah,
And
I
was
made
like,
it.
my mind was blown. I was like, this whole time I thought it was black tar. I thought that's what
Well,
it
I've
was.
gotta
Well,
know.
you know what?
What was it made out of?
It was methyl cellulose. So, sorry, guys. It was just slime.
Oh, okay.
Methyl cellulose.
Oh.
It was actually the cheap version of slime. So essentially what we had is dry slime. And dry slime was methyl cellulose that was unmixed. And we would mix it up in huge batches. And that was filmed during the reshoot at the end of it. And in fact, all the sequences with her running with the dummy down the hallways and stuff, all that was done after we cut down principal photography, that whole sequence, you know, with her running.
Wow.
As soon as she leaves the boiler room set and starts the running and the slogging and all of that was actually put together to lengthen that beginning segment, you know, with her going down the hallways and stuff. Actually, are you guys ready for a tangent?
Yeah, bring it on.
Because whether
Are you wearing seatbelts like I am?
Are you wearing?
I'm wearing all kinds of harnesses.
So I knew that we had these running sequences, and so we had some of the hallway flats left. We made a bunch of new ones because now we really had to expand that length, and so we did about 150 feet of hallway, just generic hallway. If you notice that some of them are narrow and some of them are wide and stuff, so and there's doors all over the place, and we built this, you know, kind of like generic super hallway for that sequence. And I had a plaster, I had a painter. His name is Mitch Simmons, and he was the lead painter. And he goes in and when we're doing the reshoot, we're setting up, and I see him in there, you know, with a drywall tool, and he's starting to plaster that. And he's like just poking along, and I go, dude, we got to get done, Mitch. And he goes, well, if you can do it any faster, show me. And I said, tell you what, better yet, let's do this. I'll race you. Now, here's the thing. I was raised as a plasterer. My dad was a plastering contractor. I spent...
Unfair advantage.
Unfair.
Cheater.
Hey, if it's not unfair, I'm not going to do it. So anyway, I was raised doing closets of houses back when he used to actually do interior plaster. And I was raised doing the interior of the closets, which was learning place, right? And so we get down this... We have a 150-foot long hallway, and I go, do you want to trowel with your right hand or with your left? And he goes, well, it doesn't make any difference to me, which that's a fool's game right there. Come on. So I said, okay, well, then I'll go to the right, and you go, you know, to the left. I came all the way down the hallway, 150 feet. I came down it. And there was actually a turn in it. I came down, made the turn, came down, got to the end, did the end of it, and the doors all the way down line, went back down and caught him at 32 feet.
Wow.
So I did, which I did all the rest of it. I caught him at 32 feet on one side. I did our side,
Man.
and that was from just my days of being a plasterer, and it was absolutely unfair.
Wow.
It was unfair of me.
The great plaster race of 1986.
But I have to say, it was certainly brilliant from his point of view.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, if I were him,
yeah,
I'd
you
slow
think
down.
you could do better? Well, just
he
go
probably
ahead.
did. He probably just went as slow as he possibly could.
He probably did. He was like, well, I don't have to work as hard.
I got a question about the opening.
Sure.
The paper mache part. There was a fly that landed on the bowl. Was that just a happy accident? Or
No,
was
that was
one
a
of the
trained
Wranglers
fly.
one?
That was a trained fly.
I was wondering if that was a trained one.
No, that's not a trained fly. Are you out of your mind? That was, you know what that was, right? That was probably one of the flies that was released. Yeah, I've told you before about the original, right? We were plagued by flies because we tried to have them around the pig.
Right.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that pig. Ugh.
That pig still grosses me out.
I love the pig.
Every time I watch it, that scene still grosses me out. And I watch it often.
Oh, yeah.
It's only like twice a month.
But
you're like, oh.
But you've seen my my video, right? Where I explain the whole pig and the story, the rest of the story of the pig and the flies.
Yeah.
I try not to think about that pig, but ever.
I just think it's so
like,
funny.
Yep, I've heard it.
I just think it's so funny
moving on.
that the flies basically came down to a sound effect.
Yeah, you couldn't see it all.
You couldn't see it.
It would be great in one of those 4D theaters where you have like the seats that have like the little creepy crawlies in them.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
And you're like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm itching all over my body right now.
Do a little
talking
fly
about
release
this.
in there. Yes. Ooh.
Oh.
There was another thing that I really appreciated in watching this again. The skeleton, the Ray Harryhausen.
the little girl.
The copy
when
of
she turns into
the copy of the Ray Harryhausen tribute. The skeleton fighting.
Yes, at the end.
Yeah.
Toward the end.
Fighting John Saxon and the other guy. And,
yeah.
That was kind of brilliantly done. I have to say that between 3 and 4, we did do just about every possible optical effect device you could imagine, all the way down the line.
Yeah.
I feel like Dream Warriors was such a game changer in so many different ways. Like, I feel like it was the first in all of the horror franchises to really add upon the story. Like the other sequels, like I've been watching some of the other films recently because I haven't seen a lot of other horror films like from the 80s.
Right.
So like I've started watching like Friday the 13th and Halloween and they just
it's a repeat of the story.
Showing a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. They don't connect and Dream Warriors connected so well. And the cast, like the entire cast is just so beautifully acted that like there's real substance to the characters. And then you add on top of that the dream elements that you guys put into it and the like fantastic mind-blowing like special effects. Like it really changed the game, I feel like, for not just horror films but just films in general.
Yeah.
That's why it's pretty much the fan favorite because of all of that. It's the story, it's the acting, it was the people. It's just like sometimes it's so magical when you get the right person, and so many of those actors, pretty much all of them actually, were the right person for that role. And when you kind of get all that together, plus how it's executed,
exactly.
It's no wonder that it is so popular with so many of the Nightmare fans and just horror fans in general who love Dream Warriors itself. I have gripe about the ending, but other than that,
I don't know what you're talking about. The ending
It's
is so
over.
simple. It's over, and then it's actually over. We turn the TV off, and that's the end. Like,
yeah. Speaking of Mick, the person who says it's over, what made you kind of have a little bit more respect for Nancy after your most recent viewing? Like, what changed?
I guess it was kind of the depth of the story coming out. She was, I mean, forever in my mind.
Careful what you say.
Forever. I'm being.
I know you have like the two biggest Nancy fans on the call right now.
Stop it. Now, for the longest time, like I say, the number one thing that I remembered about Nightmare on Elm Street 3, about her role in it, was her looking at the door and going, "Look, a door." And the thing is, the thing that you have to understand, and please bear this in context. The second time I saw this film was in South Central Los Angeles, after it had been out for about a week, and the entire crowd was screaming the dialogue back at the screen. And when the loudest thing in there was when that door appeared and she says, "Look, a door." It literally shook the seats with everybody saying, "Look, a door." It's
such a suspenseful moment too, because you're like, "Oh my God, there's this big door there and there's this music." It's like, "Ee!" And then it goes silent and you hear her go, "It's a door," and you're like, wow, that was a real build-up.
Yeah,
I never had an issue with this line. I don't ever understand
No. It's not an issue. The thing is, you have to understand is I just heard it with probably another 2,500 black voices, yelling that at the screen, and to this day, every time I see her. All I can think of is look, a door, and all these people. So in all honesty, and it was because of you guys that I was looking at it with I was trying to look at it with my equitable mind.
Thank you, man.
He could be changed.
Oh yeah, right. You know I'm 61 today, right? You know that I'm 61 today.
Wow.
Happy birthday.
I think he's just making that up for some sympathy.
No, actually, I am 61 today. I'll show you my license later.
Well, happy birthday.
Today's your birthday?
He kept it.
I think you meant 21, right?
What? I meant
21
yeah.
Just reverse the numbers. 16.
So young.
So young, yes.
Oh.
So you guys are forgetting about one of the best characters, and I guess since it's Mick's birthday, he'll probably appreciate this comment.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite character, probably, well, one of my favorite characters,
right,
is the sets. I would say the sets are characters.
Yeah.
In this,
you're
for sure.
That's unbelievable.
I'm not trying to suck up. In fact, I hate saying this, but I really like it. I really like the sets.
Yeah, the sets are really cool. I have to say the one thing that I really loved this time, and maybe it was because of the print, but was the mirror set. The mirror set, and that was. I'm going to give my sister complete props on the mirror set. I mean, I designed the look of it and the mirrors and all the rest of that and how it was, but she did that paint job, and that paint job was amazing. Yeah, and she did it in a very interesting way. I mean, that was not painted anywhere. It was all she put paper that had an embossment pattern to it. And then she took that paper and used alcohol Phoebe's dye and dyed all of that red.
Wow. The
different layers of the different colors of red were all dyed onto there. Wow. All with alcohol. And I specifically remember that I kept stopping her from doing it because other people had to work around, and the alcohol actually was killing people off, and I made her do it at 3:00 in the morning.
There's a pile of production assistants.
Sister CJ in there.
Right. I really like the room for the hanging. You know the people that are all hanging in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a picture of the hanging while it's going on. That picture was taken basically what we did is we cleared out Freddys Hell and used the platforms of Freddys Hell, and the thing is we had made a grid up there in order to light Freddy's Hell. And so that was one of the rare places that we had a grid that was built well enough, because I built it myself, so that we could actually hang people off of it. And we had stunt people all over the place and extras hanging everywhere. And by the time we actually did the filming, 2 of them had actually passed out in their harnesses.
Oh boy.
Because
wow.
Well, the thing is, you can never ask an actor, how are you doing? Are you okay? Because it kind of is reverse psychology, because if they're making absolutely like no money, right, and they don't have a line or anything, they will hold on to like their role like death. So they're not going to tell you that they're about ready to pass out. They're saying, "Oh, I'm fine." And then they're out. And they're out in the harness. Because, boy, if you've ever hung in a harness, they are really hard on you. Yeah.
Every time I get sick and think, gosh, I don't think I can go to work today, I'm like, but what about actors when they get sick?
Oh.
They suffer through it.
That's right.
They do. And
yeah,
but that's and you know what gets them through it? Ego. Trust me. Your ego. Trust me in this. Is ego can get you a long ways.
Oh boy, I had to widen my door.
Shut up.
Sorry.
It's a door.
Anyway,
going back to the mirror scene, I have something that I've always wondered. It's something that I've pointed out throughout the years that I don't think anyone else has ever pointed out. But when they fly through the mirrors, when they're done and Joey's screaming, if you look behind the mirrors, it's actually covered in like newspaper. And so my thought process growing up always was that when they're in the dream, they're actually in the dollhouse. Like, that's not the Freddy house. Like, Kristen pulls them into the paper mache dollhouse. Oh. And so at the end, when they fall through the mirrors and you see, the paper mache behind those mirrors, that kind of like confirmed it for me. Was that like intentional on your guys' part or not intentional? What's your thought on it?
Well, we needed something back there, to tell you the truth.
It's like The Fly, I guess.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
Well, here's the
just more
the
flies.
Thing is
put them back there.
Let me tell you something just from a practical point of view that came up about the mirrors. Is the mirrors, that whole sequence from the mirrors to the point where Freddy dies.
It's over.
Where Freddy dies in the room. All of that was at the last possible minute. I mean, let me tell you how last minute it was. Those mirrors, they were holes in the set. And at different times, they would have blue boards up for opticals, or they would have blackboards up, which was just a cheat, or you could see the flats that were behind them, or they were they should have been breakaway glass, but there wasn't enough time to order that much breakaway glass, and there just wasn't enough money, because you're talking about $1,000 per opening, for breakaway glass, and that's just for one take. And the problem is if you get breakaway glass for a single take, you need enough glass for 3 takes, right? So what we did instead is we used tempered glass, which is actual glass. And Peter Chesney blew them all at once. The stunt people then rolled down ramps that were back there that were painted black, rolled into the set. Now, here was the problem. The problem was that if you look at the shot, you can see that we didn't want just little tiny pieces of glass, which is what tempered glass does. We wanted pieces that looked like mirror. Mm-hmm. So the two that were the closest to the camera were actual glass when they were broken. But the ding-dongs that broke them at an angle like this, back towards the rest of the set. So if you look, you actually see huge pieces of glass roll towards the actors that are coming through the stunt people, and a couple of those pieces of glass actually were landed on by the stunt people and gouged huge pieces of huge chunks of flesh out of them.
Wow.
So it was all very last minute, and to this day, that last sequence with Robert dying in that room just bothers me because literally that set, the plaster was still wet. We had so little time that for that room right there, that room wasn't finished until the morning before we were actually had decided to go from that mirror straight into a room at the end of it, which was undefined at the end of the day. So that night we did it, and we were so running out of time, and we needed a plaster effect to match the rest of that I actually put dye in the plaster, and we plastered the room, and it was wet, but the dye in it made it look like we had painted it.
Oh my god!
But it's such a cool scene. Like aside from Nancy dying, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it yet, Nancy died. But aside from dying, like, we
run a clean podcast here.
I know. I'm sorry, but it's such a beautiful set. Like the set is so beautiful. I remember there was a behind the scenes featurette when I was little that was aired on MTV, and you actually were in it. And you were talking about the glass, and you were talking about how you make sugar glass, and that when the stunt actress falls down the stairs and her foot breaks the window, that it's actually sugared glass.
Right.
And I remember I was trying to make sugar glass at like 10 years old, and you got me in so much trouble from my parents. I ruined like a boiler and a sheet pan, like bad.
Wound up making caramel, didn't you?
Yes, exactly. It was like burnt and sticky and stuck, and it just was horrible. But those, like, kudos, man, because those sets were they're just so beautiful. Just beautiful.
Thank you.
How did you make the effect when after everybody falls asleep and gets into the quiet room with Kristen, and you have all of the
walls
like,
start
the
to bend around them?
coming through the walls? Yeah. I know when I was talking with Jennifer Rubin, she was mentioning how the feathers are flying and you're supposed to scream, but everybody's like choking on all the feathers.
Right. That's right. If you will notice. If you'll literally, we used feathers. We Baccia, who was our prop master, was always kind of she was a rough and ready human being. And we said we were gonna, okay, we need the feathers now, and she comes around the corner and she literally got a pillow.
Oh my
literally
gosh.
a pillow and a razor, and a straight razor. She cuts the pillow. And
she's been waiting to get out those frustrations.
She was the craziest person ever. I loved her. I swear. But literally, what that was is we made those blades, we made those claw devices, and then we just made them out of steel, sharpened them, and then we had a board. Like each one of them had a board. And it would only go so far on the board, and stick into the room so far. But honest to God, those people were in that room. All those actors were in that room while 3 sets of those blades were coming down and going across. And they were actually in there when we were doing it. We didn't really, we didn't have an option for it.
Wow.
But
now, when the one blade comes down, it cuts Heather's necklace off. That must have been pretty scary. Like, was that intentional, or was she just too close?
Oh no, it was
the blade.
No, it was intentional. I mean, the thing is there was a trip and a wire on that. No, we wouldn't.
Here's where Mick gets super serious. He's like, no, Diandra.
No, you have to. How'd you like that? How'd you like that? That's a trigger in me. That thing, because here's the thing. As much as we goof around and all the rest of that, when they're on set and you've built that set and it's your responsibility to make that gag and stuff, you can. Me. I'm a kidder. I hardly ever say anything straight. I'm always trying to kid you, but boy, when it comes down to safety, it was my job to make sure people were covered.
That's one thing not to joke about. Yeah.
You know, Peter Chesney, my good friend, who's I've worked with and worked with me on 3 and 4 and many other things. He's a mechanical special effects coordinator, and I would work with him all the time as a designer and an effects designer. And that's one thing that's just utterly that we don't kid about. You know.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was like oh my goodness, that's so, oh no.
No.
But it looks good, let's keep it in. Like one of those moments. I figured it had to, because this just comes off so cleanly. And I can't imagine that little scream that she gets would have been that little, even though it's a big little scream.
Yeah, if it had been
just
cut
like
off.
that, had it been really close like that. Yeah.
No, we're interesting, fun, not slicing people up and coming around the corner and going, oh, well, look what happened there.
Right.
Oh, darn.
That never happens.
Well, let's put it this way. You worked for years after this. So.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
So who did you kill last week?
So in the time crunches that you might have had to put some of these sets together, what out of everything, and maybe you already talked about it, was the biggest feat that you had that you're like, I can't believe we actually pulled that off. I can't believe we pulled that off in the limited amount of time that we had.
I'll tell you one that I never get credit for, and is really it's interesting. It's an incredibly complicated thing, and nobody thinks about it because it was almost too well done. Is the circular staircase? You know, the steel circular staircase from the top to the bottom. From the very top, and we literally had to take a piece of the roof off of the stage, quote unquote stage warehouse. We had to take the roof section of the roof and cut it off, and pull that roof off in order to shoot it, because it went right up to the ceiling. The ceiling was 23 feet high. Now think about that. From the top to the bottom of that set is 23 feet.
Wow.
How long does it look?
Man.
It looks endless, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. The lighting was great, too.
Yeah. That was 23 feet.
Wow.
In other words, if they had walked all the way around, and this is the funny thing that you don't realize is that they go out onto the platform and they start down, and if they actually had gone full 360 degrees, they would have hit their mouths on the platform that they started on.
Speaking of safety,
it was in forced perspective, and it was compressed.
Yeah.
So it kept getting more and more and more and more and more compressed all the way down to the bottom. In fact, the whole set was about 4 feet around in the bottom.
Oh wow!
It was 4 feet around, and at the top, I think it was 12 feet around.
That makes sense.
So,
wow.
So you're actually, and I sat and figured out every cut of every piece of material on it from one end to the other, all the way down. In fact, I had somebody that wrote on the side of it, and it was great because I wish I had a picture of it. But what he wrote, he said, I just built a forced perspective faux steel staircase, and I had no idea how I did it.
It's
That's
so
great.
awesome because like that literally like is like the stairway to hell. Like that, anytime I think of hell or anything like that, I think of that stairway.
It's a spiral staircase to hell.
Yeah.
AC/DC had it wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Spiral staircase.
Yeah. It was pretty. I find that really interesting because I think that there's a certain theme between 3 and 4 that some of the transitions, the trips to go into the dreams and stuff are so complicated, and yet you had to do your best to make sure that they flowed. And because of that flow, you kind of miss just what complicated gags they are.
Right.
Like Joey in the Joey suspended.
Oh yeah,
in the
over
bed,
over the pit.
Yeah, over the pit. Oh my God, that was complicated. Jeez, first of all, we had the room itself, where he's suspended over, and the tongues, which Rachel Tell has always talked about this. I can't think of the guy that did the tongues. Greg Canham, I think, and he was late by a couple of days, and we had to keep moving around in the schedule, and she just absolutely wanted to strangle the guy. She actually left the stage when he finally showed up.
Oh, was that bad?
So he had the tongues, and there are so many versions of him in the bed, over the pit, and each one of those is filmed in like 3 or 4 different places that you don't realize. For instance, there's 2 shots. One shot looking. In fact, this is going to be in my book. It's from 3, I know, but I cheated it. There's a shot of the cut on the stage, in Freddys Hell,
yeah.
The one in Freddys Hell, the pit that he's over. There's a picture of that pit on its side, with him sitting back, about ready to get into the position that he had to hold forever, so that we could do the camera match of him coming out like this. That matches to the bed. We had another set that was the bed completely on its side with the hole in it, with the blue screen lights behind it that were backlit. It was complicated. We tortured that guy in so many ways.
So, it's a question I always have when I'm in bed. What do you do with your tongues?
Yes, exactly.
Sorry, I had to get that in there somehow.
Wow. You know what? I can't.
Oh, so many inappropriate
I was
jokes.
going to say that
was kind of
really,
clean.
That was
I had a few more in my head, but I went with that one.
Well,
yeah. Anyway,
I think you drove all the way up to the edge of appropriate, and I think your bumper went over.
I might have. Yeah,
I really think it did.
A little bump it. Yeah.
So anyway,
I think this film made Freddy the superstar that he is. I think this is the film that did it. Personally.
Oh, this is the film. Yeah. No, this is. But I have to tell you, we had barely a year between the two.
Oh yeah.
From our point of view. From our point of view, we had about a year between the two of them, and there was so much momentum that went into the other film. But this isn't the other film. We're talking about 3.
Yeah. Chuck Russell. I mean, Lost Boys and The Blob.
What was your creepiest death in this film?
Who wants to go first?
I've got a tie. Let me think about it.
I'll go first.
Okay, go.
The creepiest death for me is Will's. When he's in that hallway and Freddy has that bass in his voice and the light hits him just ever so softly, and he says the back in the saddle again line.
It's back in the saddle again.
Oh yeah,
And he just looks at him.
That's pretty creepy.
Like it moves. It's freaky, right? Like it moves from that moment where it's like, okay, he's got a little bit of comedy to he's going to kill you.
Right.
Like he's toying with you, but now he's serious.
Right.
And it is so, that hallway, I don't know what it is about that scene, because there are other creepier deaths in the films, but that scene is just so creepy.
To me, that has it's an incredible sadness to it. There's a part where he's pulled out of the bed to sit down to see, I can't think of the character's name, the guy who dies.
Will. Will gets pulled out of the bed to see Philip's death.
Right, to see Philip's death, right? And for some reason, the combination of that and Freddy's saying that at his death was kind of poignant,
Right.
I don't know if poignant's the word to use, but it was creepy. You're right. Definitely creepy. Diandra?
For me, well, I'll give an honorable mention to Jennifer's death, because there's something about television's not working and voices coming out of it that gives me the heebie-jeebies. Yes. But I feel, for me, it definitely was Philip. I mean, it is an iconic death, and I know a lot of people will say this, but when that puppet, who freaks me out just in any case, and then he comes to life and he goes to the foot of the bed and he just gets really big. The shadowing on Freddy at that point is really terrifying.
It was.
And the angle that it shot from with the camera makes him look so much more sinister because it makes him look taller. But just to be there kind of helpless as Philip, you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You're in your skivvies, and then he just rips into you with his claws, and you're just forced to keep walking. And every little breath that Bradley takes in that moment, you could just tell there's just so much pain in every movement that Freddy is forcing him to do. And then seeing him up there on that really menacing, I think that tower in the hospital with the archways is extremely menacing. And to see Philip, up there and like way up high in this giant Freddy in the sky, for me, it is a very, very scary scene, because if I put myself in Philip's shoes, because sometimes when I watch horror movies, I have a lot of empathy for the characters and I somehow feel what they're feeling. It just makes you feel so small and helpless if you're in Philip's shoes. And Freddy just consistently is bigger and more powerful. And he has no control, and he knows he's going to die, and it's going to be a painful death. And just watching the pain and the terror in the faces of his friends trying to wake him up from down below. It's just one of those deaths that's
I'm going to echo
very,
that.
very haunting.
I'm going to echo that. I'm going to say that, to me, Philip's death completely freaked me out, but I'm going to put a coda to it. Little addendum. When that sequence was shot, the sequence of the arms being cut and stuff, all those close-ups were actually done in his shop, because the makeup effects were all very complicated for that. I saw the scene cut together before the MPAA got to it, actually before we cut it into the rest of the film. I saw that scene cut together with Rachel, and I'm not kidding. This was the long version of it, where we saw Freddy take the whole vein out, and the whole vein out, and the veins, and I mean the whole sequence. And I swear it made me want to throw up. It was so bad. I was just kind of...
Why do we not get to see those? Why do they not release this stuff?
Well, they had to carve it up quite a bit for the MPAA. They really did a lot. Which is funny, because nowadays, I'm sure that to get an R rating, nowadays they would have to cut it up even more. It was really bad. But to me, that just makes my hands just tingle. How about you? Huh?
I agree that Phillips is the scariest, and the whole puppet master thing, and also that I can feel the veins, like I can almost feel my veins.
Feel your
ripped
veins,
out. And I was really uncomfortable watching it, and I always am every time I see that scene.
Now, let's talk about where he falls from for a sec.
Yes.
Where does he fall from? Did you guys...
UCLA.
Well, absolutely, but where is it? Where is it in the script? Did you ever understand what was going on there? Because I don't know if it came through on this script, but...
Was this like the bell tower for the church or something?
This is the bell tower in the church.
Yeah.
Did you see? He
goes... He
goes,
is the bastard son of 100 maniacs. Anyway, sorry.
But you see Philip. You see Philip walk through a locked door.
Right. Yes.
At the end.
Yeah.
Okay. And when Greg's character comes around and he has to break through a locked door to the same building, and that is the same building. So that locked tower is where Philip died.
Ah, yes.
Did you ever think about that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
of course they did. Of course they did.
I could say I didn't. But,
well, no, because that scene with Craig Wasson and Freddy's mother, like that truly is the creepiest scene in the entire movie, without it even being Freddy, without there being any Freddy or any murder or any death. That scene is so messed up when she's lighting the candle and telling the story of Freddy.
Oh yeah.
And I think that like that whole thing is one of the main components that makes it really the favorite of so many fans, because it just ties everything together. It just makes
the
so
whole
much
thing's
sense.
darker.
But
dark.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and
it's pretty amazing to think that Freddy came from a nun. I think that really that juxtaposition of having this darkness come from something that's, seen as light and goodness and untouchable in a way from evil, because you're holy, you're untouchable, but not her. She was definitely touched by the devil, or at least 100 maniacs.
I do like the fact this is Patricia Arquette's debut, right? I didn't know that until I was like, oh, I didn't realize that, because I looked her up and I'm like, oh,
right,
wow,
and her personality is so strong.
Yeah, she's awesome.
All their she was pretty awesome, I have to say. Actually, all of them were really.
I do like Larry Fishburne, and I got to make a comment about.
You know what?
Kincaid. I don't like honestly, Kincaid very much.
What?
How can you not like Kincaid?
I love Kincaid.
Because he's kind of a caricature, and he's over the top. Like, at that time, they were making fun of black people, and I think that's how they wrote the script. And I think Larry Fishburne played it cool, and he just played his normal self, and I think that came across to me. I think Kincaid's a little bit too animated for me. And he also looks like he's 45.
Kurt, I get it. I can respect that, I guess, but at the same time, to me, Kincaid just seemed very real, because I'm very animated as a human being. So I was like, one of my people. Like, here we are. We're both really extremely animated.
How can you not like saying, fuck you, you sit down? Like,
well, I'm not saying it's not comical. It's not really based in reality, is what I'm trying to say.
Or when he says, my favorite line of Kincaid's, and I had Ken sign this, was, Freddie, you think you hot shit with the little mute kid, don't you? That is my favorite. That's my favorite. Because you just imagine Freddie up there. He's got his, swagger going on. He's like, I got Joey. But poor Joey's totally defenseless. And it just is this comedic picture in my head that I've always had. I love it. I love Kincaid. But I respect that. I respect it.
Yeah.
People don't like Nancy, and
Nancy.
They're dead.
Yeah,
to
Kincaid.
me,
I think it's worse in 4. I will say he's not so bad in 3.
Oh, good.
But 4, I think it gets a little too comical. I'm comparing him to
what?
He's the best.
He dies in 4. How
Sheila,
dare
the character Sheila. Now, she was awesome.
Yeah.
If you compare those two characters, I would go with Sheila any day, just because she's normal. She seems normal, like a real person. The other Kincaid's like a character to me. Like, he's like a clown, I guess.
Well, there you go.
And we'll talk about Rennie Harlan and trying to get her to talk more black in the next episode.
Oh, Tuesday, your buttocks look so beautiful.
Stop it. I had to get through this.
Those came from Tuesday's lips, all right? That came directly from Tuesday.
I had to get through making that book without, heavily getting into all that.
Right, yeah.
Because I thought that to me that was kind of noise, to the making of the film, in the background.
Well, you don't deal with that drama when you're on the production side as much as with actors, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Let them figure it out amongst themselves. Yeah.
You mean Mick? He wasn't like, oh, Mick, your buttocks is so beautiful.
That's personal. That's hey.
Only in private.
Your luscious mane of hair.
That's personal, man. Listen, a little fin on the side.
Oh goodness.
Mick, I have a question for you. And so I tend to ask this a lot of people involved in the films because I'm so nosy and I want to know. But so now that you rewatching it again, was there anything that you guys filmed that didn't make the cut at all?
In a way, 3 was a little bit more worked out. And this is something that I especially noticed. If you notice, 3 has a lot of little optical pieces in it, and those optical pieces took time. And you could tell that there were things that were prepped over a much longer period of time for 3. I think that we knew kind of what we were doing a lot. Other than the end by itself, the whole how we're doing the end, and there are certain things that we may have filmed in the end that we filmed in multiple ways so that it could be edited together and corrected together. In the great bulk of the story, 4 was the one that really had that had things that kind of kept dropping off as we went down the road.
And I know we've talked about it before with 4 about how it was basically being
Yes.
written as it was being made, in a sense. But 4, when I first became a fan, like, I was super obsessed with 4. I love 4, aka the MTV Nightmare on Elm Street. I love the pop cultureness, and somewhat when I think of Freddy, when I used to draw Freddy, because I used to spend, some people would write in their notebooks, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so in love forever. And I was like, Freddy Krueger everywhere. But when I would draw Freddy, I would draw him from part 4 all the time. There's just that look. And I remember I had a little small conversation with Tommy Hudson. I was just on Twitter, and we somehow got on the topic that for us, when we think of Freddy, like, part 4 pops up in our head immediately. If we're going to draw Freddy or think about Freddy being in our dreams, for me, it's part 4 Freddy.
I think that Robert Englund, let me put it this way. Robert Englund did an interview for 4 with me. He talked about how he was in negotiations for a long time before coming back to the film. He was on V at the time. He's a very popular show. I mean, V was number 1.
That show. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was number 1 in that show. And so his popularity at the time and his I mean, he could go a completely other direction, and he knew it. And the thing is he was by the time they got done with the negotiation period, he was sick. But he says this, and he says it in this interview. He says, but when I walked, the very first time that he saw anything of what we were doing on Nightmare on Elm Street 4 was at the junkyard. And he said that when he walked up and he saw the junkyard, and he kind of asked everybody to go away for an hour so that he could possess the space, so that he says the space created the character. Mm-hmm. He said it energized him. It made him look the way that he did on 4. And he said just the bigness of it made Freddy this big and more theatrical and more striking poses and stuff. And I think that's one of the big differences between 3 and 4 is, like, everything on 4 is MTV. It's striking that pose. It's, you know what it is? It's the heavy metal guitarist holding the, and just striking that chord, like that. That's and that's what Freddy's doing. Yeah. And he says that his whole reaction in relation to it had to do with seeing that set, with coming onto that enormous, place that was all just all that, right? And I think that on 3, it was a little bit more cerebral, and I think Freddy in his own way was a little bit more cerebral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is why I like it.
I do too. I agree.
Yeah, for some reason, I really enjoyed.
I like this one more.
I enjoyed 3 a lot more this time that I saw it. As I keep watching them back and forth, and I think it's just a better movie. That's the way I look at it. Well, it is a better movie, but at the same time, and Danny Hassel put it best. Hassel says, let's face it, Nightmare on Elm Street 4 is the most kick-ass popcorn movie that right? ever existed. Yeah. And he's right about that. He's right. It's a kick-ass popcorn movie. I think Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is a better film. It actually sends you away thinking about it, but I still love me some 4.
Yeah.
I love both of them. Mm-hmm. I feel like both of them are so good that you can watch them all at once. You can start 3 and go all the way to the end of 4 and just be like, oh, okay. I think that, there's a shift in it, obviously, going from darker to, the MTV comedy thing. But I don't think it's so drastic. I think that they meld really well together.
Yeah, I think they do, too.
Somebody posed a question not that long ago, Paige, that was kind of like that. That was, is there really, I think it might have been Dre and maybe Stay Awake, but he asked about is the difference in Freddys between movies really that drastic? And a lot of people, including myself, thought, in certain films it is, but between 3 and 4, there's a pretty smooth transition there. I mean, there's a noticeable difference, but at the same time, it's pretty smooth from one to the other.
Yeah, I think it's a progression is what it is. When he comes,
right?
When he comes, I think that the most interesting thing, and this is totally getting away from 3, and I don't know if we should shut this down.
Because I have tons of comments about 4.
This might be a good transition into 4.
Here's what we all have to do in order to be released from this film. We have to rate it.
Can you ever be released from this movie?
No, I can't. I can't be. I definitely can't be. So.
How many doors do we give it?
It's my favorite film in the entire world. Not just my favorite nightmare film. It's my number 1
even more than
favorite
Teen Wolf
film of all time.
Now stop it with Teen Wolf. You and Teen Wolf.
Witch.
Oh, I can't believe it. He made me curse.
No, it is.
I can't believe.
Listen, it's my number 1. Like I don't ever get like anything signed.
So are you gonna? I actually own, and I'm prejudiced here, and I'm gonna go for a 4.1.
Wow, I thought you rated it higher. I was expecting more out of you, but that's okay.
Shut up. You know what? I swear. I'm talking to a guy here that I asked him to judge we got down to the judging part of the film the other day, and he goes, "Wow, you know what? This is why we need to make a spreadsheet." I go, "Oh my God, if you need a spreadsheet for this, you're overthinking everything."
Well, I see ourselves reviewing the same movie twice, and then I want to see if Mick rates it differently. So I might try to trick him.
Yeah.
I might try to trick him to do a movie that we've already done and see what he says.
Yeah.
Saturn 3 or something.
Shut up.
So yeah, I guess I could go now because I'm excited.
It's your turn.
I would rate this extremely high because it's my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie out of, I guess, 6 that I've seen.
Yeah.
So I say this is the number 1, and I love the sets. I love how dark it is. I love how Freddy's not too comical. It is kind of dark. Everything's dark about it.
Yeah.
So I kind of lean that way, I guess, with movies anyway. And of course, I would just get it like a 4.6.
Whoa!
Yes. Not a 5, but a 4.6.
Up there.
Wow. Yeah. I like that. He just rated one of my films better than I did.
I like it.
We're our own worst critic, aren't we, Mick? That's what it is.
You should have seen him trying to review Strays and Critters too. He was like squirming in his seat, like.
I'll rate it 5.
Oh, we've got a 5.
I expected that actually.
Go.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, actually,
Perfect score.
Yeah. Went for 5. There you go. Diandra.
I'm gonna go with 4.1 like you, Mick, because it gets, despite loving it, despite me agreeing that it is the perfect mix of being cerebral but also having that little bit of comedy, but it's a sinister comedy. I mean, and the story and the characters and the acting, it's all so wonderful. But it gets major points deducted for Nancy's death and what I wish would have been in from the earlier script by Craven. I know it's like I'm beating a dead horse, but I'm going to keep beating it until I die.
The really funny thing is I have to watch Kurt's face during this.
I will bring you into the beautiful dream. You will never die. Do you understand?
Nancy Schmancy.
I will die for you. I'm going to take the spiral staircase to hell.
Well, you know what? I have a feeling that that's it, and we are going to trot on to the next one. How about that?
Giddy up.
Giddy up.
Thank you for joining us on the Dream Warrior Review podcast. Don't forget to like us and follow us on Facebook, DW Review, and Twitter at DW Review. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, Google, Stitcher. You can even find us on YouTube. You can also email us at dreamwarriorreview@gmail.com. And we appreciate you listeners. I'm Kurt Thomas with Mick Strawn. See you next time.
You wonder if you're such a slave or stay.
It's a door.
It's a door.
It's a door.